drifting away. Ain't nothing left but some rhymes and decay. Gave it my best in the lines in a fray. Roving through stress, but my mind it betrays. Gone with the wind, walking.
Okay, so I am several days late, and everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. I originally recorded the video already for the 4th episode of Hunter x Hunter, and not only did I stop the recording, but the first half of the video got corrupted, which I would make a new one, but it's a reaction video, so that defeats the purpose. I'll probably just cut down the second half that I have, put that into something and just chat about it, and then record another episode. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But I just rewatched episode 3 of Insecure before I watched 4, because I wanted to do the review for this one, just in case 4 influences my opinion on episode 3. So I know I'm hella late, but you're gonna get a 2 for 1, so don't worry about it. Let's get started. Alright, so the episode opens up with Issa posting to her social media account about Schoolboy Q. So remember last episode she secured Schoolboy Q as her artist. Of course now she's been hyped everybody up. People are hitting her back saying that they're gonna definitely show up if he's gonna be there. She's ends up being interrupted by her neighbors, who every last one of them show up at her apartment and I guess tell her off because there was plumbing happening and the water was turned off, but Issa forgot to remind all her tenants, who then came over to flame her and her appearance for doing such a thing. So then they cut to Molly in her apartment on her laptop working on, I guess, the case that she had been assigned, and the door, she hears a knock at the door and completely freaks out because I guess she forgets her guest was coming over. She checks her armpits. She hadn't showered. She still had rollers in her hair. She opens the door. Lo and behold, it's Andrew. So she tries to, they're kissing or whatever. They end up trying to have sex, but he can tell she's not that into it. So he stops and asks her, is it work? And she's like, yeah. So she begs him, like, give me some time till 9 o'clock. And I'll be back. So we have no idea what time Andrew showed up there, but we do know that she didn't come in the room until 1:42 a.m. when she finished her project. She did wake Andrew up though, and they did have sex. He didn't seem to be bothered by it, but yeah, because he's already naked. Then we cut back to Issa. She gets a phone call from the printer for the proofs of the posters, and that's when we find out either right before or right after that she's not heard from Condola. She's been texting her. Condola has not responded, but she told her she would call her after work. She gives her a call. She gets her voicemail. So essentially Condola has ghosted Issa. We don't know why or what happened. Next is Molly. It cuts to Molly at a meeting with the ladies in her law firm. And they're talking. I guess this guy comes by. She calls him BJ, and he corrects her and says, my name is actually Bennett now. And she says, oh, okay. So the ladies gossip and whatnot about different guys and make a joke, I guess, about all of his credentials and that he doesn't really date black women. And one of the ladies ends up saying, like, I have to go. My children been eating pie crust at night. And another woman says that she'll stay late. Molly, being the ever overachiever that she is, decides that she also is going to stay late, which means that she canceled plans with Andrew again. So the first time she forgot, now she's canceling plans with him, which she was supposed to go to a listening party. I don't know about Molly, but I feel like she's not reaping the full benefits of this relationship. Andrew works for Live Nation. Do you know how much access to free music and concerts he has? We would be at a show all the time. I would have to leave everybody high and dry because I'd have to go see the show. So, and I want to point out, he has good taste because he had asked her to go to a Summer Walker concert and to a SZA show at one point. So, she needs to get it together. Cuts to, Issa and Molly fighting over a parking space because they're trying to park at Tiffany's house, and they back up and forward like 4 times. I don't know why Molly didn't just let Issa have the parking space, because you could clearly see she was reversing into it, but they end up awkwardly like going back and forth until Issa's just like, I'll just drive around the block again and see if I can find a parking spot. And as Issa's walking back from her car to Tiffany, and I think it's Derek is her husband's name. As she's walking back to the house, she checks her phone and she's got a voicemail from Nathan, who's congratulating her, who's saying that Andrew told him about the block party. So that means they're still in touch. I don't know if Nathan and him are still roommates, because I'm curious how that's working with Molly and Andrew dating, right? Because weren't they roommates before? But the place that she went to see Andrew at doesn't look like the same apartment. Like, isn't the layout different? I could be wrong. Unless Andrew's managed to move out in this time span, which makes sense, because if he's got a good job, he seems more of like a professional than he did like when we saw him last season, if that makes sense. But she doesn't call him back. She just listens to the voicemail. She hangs up. And her and Miley end up meeting up as they're walking back to the house and talking about, how busy they've been and how neither of them actually have been doing self-care Sundays as Molly plans for this event. So, I guess Issa's been working all the Sundays or has been consecutively canceling on her on Sundays, and Molly hasn't been keeping up self-care Sundays by herself. And then they say maybe we should change the day when we're less busy. And they both do this fake thing where they're like, yeah, Molly's like, but you want to continue doing it. And Issa's like, yeah. And she's like, do you? And she's like, yeah. And you're like, y'all lying. Y'all are really lying, but okay. That then cuts to Derek and Lawrence having a talk over the newborn baby by Tiffany. I think they named her Simone, if I'm reading the name above her crib correctly. But basically, we find out that Tiffany and Derek didn't plan for their baby. They weren't planning on having kids for another 2 years. But they're happy about it. And Derek is also reflecting on how he's treated women like trash in the past, and that somebody in the future, some boy, is going to try to take advantage of his daughter. And says, like, all women are daughters and we all treat them like trash. And even then, it's still problematic, because you shouldn't treat women with respect simply because they're someone's daughter, but because they're people. But I feel like it was a good thing to touch up on, because I feel like that's a common thing that men don't notice until after they have kids, specifically baby girls. But that makes Lawrence feel somewhat relieved, because I think Lawrence kind of, in a way, in the same way that Molly kind of had expectations about where his life was supposed to be and what he was supposed to be doing by a certain age. But I think from talking to his friends and talking to his father and just watching other people, he's learning, like, everybody makes mistakes, which I'm hoping doesn't turn into him trying to forgive Issa about cheating. And see, here's the thing, right? Because during this time when I was trying to, find a spot to stream it and record this episodes, I actually went back over the weekend and watched all the 3 seasons again. And I distinctly remember, I want to say in season 2, where Issa, either it was late season 2 or early season 3, where Molly and Issa have a conversation. And this is why I was saying before, like, I don't think they should put them back together, because I don't think Issa's in love with Lawrence anymore. Issa herself said, like, I think I'm over Lawrence. I think this was actually at the baby shower. I'm over Lawrence and I'm ready to move on and start fresh. And I think she is truthful, even with the whole thing with Condola. I think it makes her uncomfortable, because 5 years is a long time to be in a relationship. And I think her conversation with her brother was her being truthful. Like, I feel like she feels like she put time into Lawrence only for Condola to reap the benefits. But I don't think that necessarily means that she loves Lawrence and that she wants him back. She's just kind of sore about the treatment that she got, even though we know, like, she had shit that she had to do better on. But they both blossomed in a way that they wouldn't probably post-breakup if they had stayed together. You know what I mean? And I think Lawrence, to a certain degree, is still in love with Issa, because I think a lot of his past, like, post-breakup instances with women have all been very reactionary, because he's heard about Issa and doesn't really want to confront that. Like, even with the little moments where they had actually hashed it out, had a conversation in their apartment, saw each other in public, saw her on her birthday, and they were super friendly to each other. But then he just did like a quick change of heart and was kind of like weird with her with the whole Condola thing. So I don't know. I don't know what Lawrence wants. I'm hoping that if he does try to get Issa back, Issa says no. I would like to see her patch it up with, no, at least hash it out with Nathan. Um, but Nathan's gonna have to come through with like some serious, real information about who he is, why he left, and real hardcore proof that he's not doing it again. Because we don't even know much about Nathan's backstory except that he's from Houston, Texas, and he's a barber. Like, he never spoke about family. We knew he grew up in the hood, like in the rough parts of Houston, because he did say that when they were talking. But we don't know anything else outside of that. And then he said he went back to Houston and then was going to stay for good when he spoke to Issa, when he apologized to her on her birthday with the flowers. So, I don't know. I don't know. I think Lawrence would be the really easy route. I think it's okay to split up. I think they can be friends, but I don't want to see them back together. Yeah, so then we cut to the ladies out in the living room with Tiffany, who is finally being real as a real person. Her makeup's not done, her hair is not done. She says she stinks because she hasn't showered in 3 days. Says that she can't stand being around her other mommy friends because they're so obsessed with being perfect. And the girls are like, she was like, how can someone live like that? And the girls are like, oh, we don't know. But they know because that's how Tiffany was or is. We don't know how long this is going to last. Maybe the newborn is a reality check she needs. She has a conversation with the lady saying that she had complications during giving birth. And she ends up having a blood clot, which I thought was really nice that they touched on, because we know that Black women are having really high mortality rates when it comes to us giving for childbirth. They even bring up the popular instance of Serena Williams, which I think Beyonce was also an issue. She gave birth to the twins. A woman recently in New York City had died from something similar. And another one I think was in the UK with a guy and his wife, and he kept telling them something was wrong. They didn't believe her, so she ended up dying. But I like how they touch on moments like that without being heavy-handed, but they're just real conversations that need to be spoken about. So, Tiffany's praising Derek, saying how he really helped her out and he stuck up for her and kept demanding and speaking to different doctors until she got the help that she needed and how much she loved him. Molly chimes in about how, communication is so great and having somebody to lean on and how relationships are fantastic, and bragging about her man, Andrew. And you see Issa kind of looking at her, and then she makes a comment like, damn, Molly out here sounding like Red Table Talk, and then Molly gets offended. And Issa's like, I'm just joking, Molly, like, I'm not being serious. But I have mixed feelings about it. I feel like it isn't a new thing for Issa to make jokes about like that, like about Molly or about anybody, because she's awkward. But at that moment, I guess the way she was looking at Molly, to me, read a little bit of like stank energy, just a little bit, just a hint, maybe jealousy even. Because I think because their last conversation, she remembers her complaining about Andrew. So now to hear her saying like how fantastic he is, probably seems weird to Issa. But again, they haven't been hanging out, so there's no way for them to catch up. After that, of course, Molly just is petty for the rest of the time that Issa and her have any interactions at the house, because that's how Molly is. She's immature. So Issa ends up walking away. No, Molly. I think Tiffany gets called over the baby monitor. She goes to help her husband. Molly follows. Issa stays behind, talks to Kelly. And asks Kelly if Molly's mentioned anything about her. Kelly says no, and immediately thinks that she's messed up and slept with Andrew. And Issa's like, no, that's not even close. But she tells her, like, I feel like Molly's been having her foot on my neck for the last couple of months, and I don't really know what's up. And Kelly's like, you know, maybe y'all just need to have a conversation. Maybe y'all just need to sit down and talk, which is the truth, because the both of them keep dancing around each other like, oh, I don't know this bitch problem. I don't know this bitch problem. It's like neither one of you are acting like adults and willing to sit down and talk, because that's what you need to do. You agree that you were going to do it last episode. You said you were going to do it Thanksgiving. You didn't do it. And it's starting to really show wear and tear in your relationship because you won't do it. So, it cuts to Tiffany and Molly having a similar conversation to the way Issa and Kelly are, with Molly being frustrated because she sees Issa outside talking to Lawrence. And Tiffany asks her what's wrong. Molly's like, you know, I just feel like Issa thinks that I don't want to be happy, and talks about me doing old shit, but here she is over here with Lawrence in this whole Condola situation. And, you know, Tiffany being real one of the few times is like, you know, I don't think it's any of that. She's like, I think it's just a breakdown in communication. I think you guys just need to talk, which again echoes what Kelly said. So then we cut outside to Lawrence and Issa outside. They're catching up with one another. She mentions how Condola has essentially ghosted her. Lawrence gets like, is kind of a guilt face and says he wants to talk to Issa. Issa's phone rings. She then finds out that Schoolboy Q has now dropped out of the lineup to be her headliner. She turns back to Lawrence after she gets off the phone and asks if he had, what it was he wanted to tell her. He said that they could talk about it at another time. I have no idea what Lawrence had to tell her, but Lord, I hope it has nothing to do with why her Condola or why this lineup is messed up. I've heard two theories. Either he was going to tell her that Condola's backing out because him and her are trying to take their relationship more seriously, or that he's broken up with her because he told her that he had feelings for her and Condola got scared off. Also, I keep hearing from people being like, she's not obligated to stay and help. Like, they didn't sign a contract. But to me, I'm like, contract or no contract is just, that's just not the human thing to do. Like, sometimes you just, I feel I'm all for like not doing something that makes you uncomfortable, but I also don't feel like being nasty to people is the answer either. Issa has made it this far, and let's be honest, a lot of this is done through the fact that she had connections that she gained through Condola. If she pulls out knowing damn full well that she is the person that brought the majority of this stuff just for this event to flop, I feel like that's really mean-spirited and unnecessary. Even if she didn't want to be directly involved, if she could find someone else to replace her, like temporarily, or someone else to help, or just give her the information she needed and keep the like friendliness down, I thought that would have been better. You don't just flake on somebody like that, just especially when Issa, I don't think, is directly involved in it. Like, yes, that is a conversation between Lawrence and her, but Issa also didn't sign up for the two of them to date. She just happened to be in the middle of it. She happened to want a block party, and the girl who happened to have all the information to help her also happened to be dating her ex. Like, even with Molly being a bitch about her to it, a bitch to her about it, Issa's still like, I'm trying to navigate this awkward moment as best as everybody else. Like, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't want this to happen. But yeah, so they leave, and it cuts to Issa comes in the house. She talks to them about something, or like asks the lady something. Molly, of course, is being an ass about it. She ends up having to leave again, and she apologizes, and Molly's giving her the and Issa is just like, okay. And again, I know that part of this comes from the breakdown, but we're now at a month before her event. Like, the fact that Molly is not even putting, and this is also why I feel like low-key is because Molly has never respected Issa or seen her as an equal, because like I said, she's taken shots the entire series. If your friend has been planning something, like, and she had told her about the block party, Molly already was cracking jokes because she didn't think she was gonna do it. Now this thing has become a solidified real event that is happening. you're at a crunch time. I don't know if you guys have ever worked in event planning or nonprofit or any of that stuff, but I relate to Issa's character so much because that is something that I do professionally on a regular basis, and it is difficult. A lot of time that you normally would have for life balancing goes away. A lot of the time that your time doesn't belong to you anymore because people will call you at last minute about posters or about chairs, about a food thing, or your location having an issue, or delivery times. Like anything and everything can and will go wrong at some point. And the fact that Molly, who's her closest, has seen her like grind this out is like giving her such a hard time is really gross to me. And because Kelly and Tiffany weren't even bothered by it. Maybe because they don't hang around with her as much, but they seem to be like understanding in a way that Molly wasn't. So, and I think they stay out of it because they know that their relationship is different in the same way that Kelly and Tiffany's relationship is different. They're really close. So, Issa's trying to hype herself up in the mirror by rapping, and her reflection completely shuts down and is just like, bitch, I have a heart over here too, okay? And actually jumps at Issa, and Issa just walks out the bathroom like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Which goes to show, like, Issa's kind of being blindly selfish. Like, she's trying to push this project out and make it a success, but she's also forgetting like people around her, which is why her and Molly's relationship is suffering. Because I get it, if you already got work stress, you don't really want to unpack your like personal life stress too, because you're just like, if it all falls apart, like that's it. And Molly's not usually the person that is understanding, and she did good and bad this episode. But yeah, so it cuts to Issa making a bunch of phone calls and connections, trying to reach someone to be a replacement, calling people and texting people and sending messages to others that she has not spoken in 2 years. Spoken to 4 years, and of course that does not work. So she's just completely bummed. It then cuts to Molly and Andrew on a date. She thanks Andrew for being so flexible with her schedule and her current recent cancellations. She tells him about all these plans they're gonna have, about edibles and going whiskey tasting and having sex. Andrew tells her that he actually has plans with his boys that night. She gets upset and is like, but it's date night. You know, he's like, yeah, Molly, but I never know when you're actually gonna be here. And she's like, yeah, but I'm here now, which goes to show, like, Molly being Molly does not think that far ahead. And that overachiever bullshit is gonna get her in trouble. But he tells her, like, you know, I don't know. I can never like tell when you're actually gonna be around because you cancel on me so frequently. She gets upset. He offers to cancel with his boys, but she tells him no. But you can tell she stank for the rest of the dinner because the whole energy just shifts. She just looks irritated. Andrew looks kind of uncomfortable, which kind of surprised me because up until this point, he kind of been putting his foot down, but he probably didn't want to ruin dinner. I don't know. This then cuts to her being back at her office. Issa calls Molly, tells her, girl, we gotta talk. I got a lot going on. Molly thinks that they're finally about to have the conversation that she's been waiting to have. She's like, oh yeah, girl, this stuff at work and with Andrew. And Issa cuts her off and is like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, girl, but this will take a second. I was just like, ugh, Issa, come on. Now that's inappropriate. That is very inappropriate. I don't think it was okay for Issa to call her and ask her for a favor, especially knowing that they haven't been on the greatest of terms. That to me came off very selfish. I understood that she was at work, but I feel like she could have done both of those things at the same time. She could have hashed out her problems with Molly and asked Molly for a favor at the same time. Because I think had she just acknowledged that they had been off, confronted everything, sat down and explained the whole situation to her, I think Molly would have been willing to help her. But the fact that she didn't even call with a little bit of consideration of Molly's feelings, it just turned Molly off from the whole conversation. Of course, she's asking because Andrew works for Live Nation, if Andrew can see if he could find a new headliner, or get a specific headliner that she's looking at to come do the block party. Molly says, yeah, sure, Issa, I can do it, but you could tell she's still really bummed because that's not what Issa didn't call for, what she thought she was calling for. So she ends up, she's like, well, I gotta get back to work, and she hangs up. Which I was like, neither one of y'all are good at reading the room. Like, y'all are terrible with your social skills, which is sad because you're both over 30, and neither one of you are very good communicators. How is this possible? How have you been a successful lawyer with terrible communication skills? Like, isn't that your job? And same thing with Issa. Like, you worked in nonprofit. Part of that is about knowing how to speak to people and getting them to want to come up off of their wallets. Like, selling people things and being aware, self-aware is very critical. And the fact that they've been friends this long and still haven't figured out, like, talking to people is an essential lifelong skill completely blows my mind. I also understand that friends do grow apart. Sometimes you don't take friends into the next phases of your life. But I really hope that that's not the case with Issa and Molly. I think they just really got to work on that communication aspect of their friendship because it'll help them in all the areas of their lives. But then we cut to Molly showing up at Andrew's apartment with a gift and asks if they can talk about what happened the other night. He says, of course. They have a seat on the couch, which this is why I was saying, did he move out? Because I could have swore before when Issa and her showed up, it looked like maybe I have to go watch the clip again, but it looks like she was in a hallway of like an apartment building. But when Issa and Molly showed up to go through Nathan's stuff last season, they were outside, like they were on steps. Like they had to walk into his apartment, walk up into his apartment, not. Does it make sense? And the furniture looks different. Like I don't remember it being as dark in that like stainless steel bachelor pad vibe. It looked like they just had like generic furniture in the back the last time. I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up. Maybe that wasn't a thing. She apologizes for her lack of like oversight and being able to be better at speaking to him. You know, she thanked him earlier for being flexible, but she was still kind of being selfish in the sense that she was just kind of canceling on Andrew. And I feel like everybody agrees that Andrew was fine as hell and nobody would cancel on him, so she was already making everybody mad with that one. I actually thought Andrew was trying to break up with her at this part, but he's like, we're not in the honeymoon phase anymore, and I'm not sure if our schedules are gonna work. And, you know, she says, you know, but we can try. He's like, I really want to. And I like that she actually was honest with him about, like, you know, I honestly have never gotten this far. I've never even had to think about negotiating my schedules in the past because none of my relationships have lasted this long for me to even have this conversation with you. So they're sweet. He kisses her. I think they agree that they're going to work it out. And she tells Andrew to his face, like, you are my main priority. And I was like, yes, Molly, thank you. Communication. These words are good. But I'm glad to, where she's falling short with Issa, she's catching it faster with her interactions with Andrew to fix it. Because I feel like old Molly would have sat and harbored on how dare Andrew cancel on me on date night and hang out with his friends. But the fact that she was able to be like, you know what? I dropped the ball. Let me go fix this right now before it blows up into something else, I thought was really good for her. After they make up, she calls Issa to tell her that she is in fact not going to ask Andrew to help. Issa's completely taken aback and very confused. Molly tells her, I want to keep my work life and my relationship separate. I want to just focus on this relationship because I really like it and I want it to grow. And, you know, Issa's kind of confused, like, okay, does that not include me? And again, I agreed with Molly because if Issa had just genuinely called to speak to Molly about what was happening, this whole thing could have been squashed. And to a degree, yes, Molly was being petty of being like, I'm not gonna ask Andrew. But knowing how things have been going between the two of them right now, it could have backfired even worse. And then she would have had to choose a side between Andrew and Issa. And that would have been a complete and total disaster. So I'm with her on that one. I think if Issa had just called her with good intentions, apologized, and just had to have her like a real heart to heart, then asked her, things would have went completely differently. So now we got to figure out what the hell Issa's going to do, because Condola done ghosted her. Lawrence is being weird. Molly's mad at her. Tiffany just gave birth, so Kelly's with her, who is totally jealous of this baby, but also very amused. She got to make that shit work, and that is unfortunately adulthood. A lot of times, if things are just going terribly wrong, and trying to just pick up the pieces and solve it as best as you can. So I'll be curious of what is going to happen. I'm about to edit this video down right when I'm done, upload this, and then go watch the next one so I can take notes. I will record it and post this shit before the day is out, okay? I'm not doing anything else. I just have a paper to finish for school. I can do this, all right? But as always, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought down in the comments, and I shall see you in the next one. And happy Mother's Day to all the mommies out there, and bye.